You finally get diagnosed with ADHD. And honestly, at first, it feels amazing. Not, I just won the lottery. Amazing. More like, you've been hearing a weird noise in your car for 15 years. Nobody knows what it is. Mechanics can't find it. Your friends think you're imagining it. Then one day, somebody opens the hood and says, "Oh yeah, that's the problem." The noise is still there, but at least you're not crazy. That's what getting diagnosed feels like for about a week. Then your brain does something extremely unhelpful. It starts reopening old tabs. And I don't mean browser tabs. Although, if you have ADHD, there are probably 47 of those open too. I mean life tabs, childhood tabs, school tabs, relationship tabs, embarrassing memory tabs, tabs you didn't even know were still running in the background. Suddenly, you're remembering things from 15 years ago for absolutely no reason. You're brushing your teeth, and your brain goes, "Hey, remember that assignment you forgot in 7th grade?" No, actually, I didn't. Thanks for bringing that back. Very helpful. Because that's the weird thing about getting diagnosed as an adult. You think you're getting answers. What you're actually getting is a completely different version of your own story. You start looking at old memories differently. Take homework. Homework was supposed to take 20 minutes, which was great. Because somehow it took you 3 hours. Not because you were watching TV, not because you didn't care. You were sitting right there, looking directly at it, trying the entire time. You read the same paragraph 6 times. Your pencil somehow ended up dismantled. You organized your desk, reorganized your desk, wondered what dinosaurs would look like if they had jobs. Then suddenly it was dark outside, and the homework was still sitting there. Everybody assumed you weren't trying. But you were. That's what hurts. You were trying the entire time. The diagnosis doesn't hurt because it's bad. The diagnosis hurts because it would have helped 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Because suddenly all those moments start changing shape. The report cards, the forgotten deadlines, the constant feeling that everybody else got instructions you somehow missed. For years you thought you were failing tests. Then one day, you realize you were taking a different test entirely. And nobody told you. That's when the grief shows up. Not dramatic movie grief, not standing in the rain grief. Much worse, quiet grief, the kind that sneaks up on you while you're folding laundry. You suddenly think, what would have happened if somebody noticed sooner? And now you're done. Because once that question enters your brain, it's moving in permanently. Your brain immediately opens Photoshop and starts editing your entire life. Different school, different grades, different relationships, different career, different choices. By Thursday, you've created 6 alternate versions of yourself. And somehow, every single one owns a house. The real tragedy is that your imaginary self is doing incredibly well. Meanwhile, actual you is standing in the kitchen trying to remember why you walked in there. Again, and here's the frustrating part. You know it's pointless. You know the past can't change. But grief has never been particularly interested in logic. Because grief isn't always about losing something you had. Sometimes it's about losing something you never got. And that's a different kind of pain. You start remembering all the things you blamed yourself for. Being late, forgetting things, missing details, losing track of conversations halfway through, walking into a room with a mission, then immediately becoming a confused tourist. You spend years telling yourself, next week I'll finally get my life together. Then next week arrives, and somehow you've purchased a new notebook instead. Because apparently every ADHD recovery plan begins with buying office supplies. For some reason, you tell yourself this notebook is different. This notebook will fix everything. It does not. The notebook joins the others. There are now 12. Together, they form a support group. And underneath all those little moments sits something bigger, a story. A story you've been telling yourself for years. Maybe you're lazy, maybe you're unreliable, maybe you're bad at life, maybe everybody else is just better at being an adult. After enough years, you stop questioning those stories. You become them. Which is why the diagnosis creates such a weird identity crisis. Because if you aren't lazy, then who have you been trying to fix all these years? Seriously, who? The strangest part isn't discovering you have ADHD. The strangest part is realizing how much of your personality was built around not knowing. Maybe you became the funny one, because humor covered mistakes. Maybe you became the people pleaser, because disappointing people felt unbearable. Maybe you became obsessed with productivity, because you spent years trying to prove something to yourself. The diagnosis doesn't just explain symptoms, it explains entire patterns. And that's when another uncomfortable realization shows up. Maybe the biggest thing ADHD stole wasn't productivity. Maybe it was trust. Trust in yourself. Because after enough forgotten appointments, enough missed deadlines, enough promises you genuinely intended to keep, you stop believing your own words. You stop trusting your own plans. You stop trusting yourself. Not because you're weak, because you've collected years of evidence. That's a heavy thing to carry. But then something changes. Slowly, you start looking at younger versions of yourself differently. The kid who struggled in school, the teenager who always felt behind, the young adult who couldn't understand why simple things felt so difficult. And, for the first time, you stop looking at them like a problem. You stop asking, why couldn't you just get it together? And start asking, how are you carrying all of that alone? That question changes everything, because suddenly your memories stop looking like evidence and start looking like context. The mistakes look different, the failures look different, even the regrets look different, not erased, not excused, understood. And maybe that's what getting diagnosed as an adult is really about. Not finally learning what's wrong with you, finally learning what wasn't. Because the truth is, the person you've spent years blaming, the person you've spent years criticizing, the person you've spent years trying to fix, was trying harder than anyone realized, including you. And maybe that's the real grief. Not the opportunities, not the years, not even the mistakes. It's realizing how long you've been carrying blame that never belonged to you. But maybe that's the relief too. Because for the first time, the story changes. You're not looking at a broken person anymore. You're looking at a person who struggled, a person who adapted, a person who survived. And suddenly that kid you've spent decades criticizing becomes the person you want to protect most, yourself.